And hopefully, he says, technology permitting, God, wind, and
My phone's just pinged, so that must mean something good.
Okay, right, happy days. Hopefully, we should now be live.
Tell me something good.
Cold potatoes are not hot.
It's lovely to meet up with Sam on Saturday. He was very, very interesting indeed.
I bet.
And he travelled quite a distance as well to come see us. So.
Yeah.
Where had he flown into?
Into Heathrow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. So it's a bit of a trot. What is that? 2.5 hours?
Yes.
2 hours?
Yeah, he was on a bit of a longer layover. I think he took some leave because he wanted to do some sightseeing around London, so he was going to be looking up some stuff around London. So,
Nice.
I don't suppose you can get the train up to Duxford, can you? There's probably nowhere nearby where you could, because that would seem like the obvious choice coming up from London, wouldn't it?
yeah.
I mean, Stansted the obvious choice, isn't it? But
Yeah. I don't think his airline flies into Stansted.
no.
But he flew over on a 7.6, but obviously he's rated on the 7.6 and the 7.5.
Okay. Don't know what any of that means, but yeah.
Yes, you do. Mr. I don't know anything about aeroplanes.
I don't.
But occasionally comes up with little gems that
just
Well,
throw
he has-
something in there.
He has learned quite a bit in the last
There are
10 years, huh?
There are just like there's little. They're what I call is they are sensible questions usually.
Do you know where it shows for me, Matt, is when you read aircraft registrations and you don't skip a beat on the phonetic alphabet.
Yeah. Actually, to be fair, the Naked Wines helped me with that because I spent my entire life dealing in postcodes. So I had to learn postcodes pretty quickly in order to be able to liaise with the customer and or the courier.
Postcodes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got quite good at November Romeo 35, 1 Delta November. For example.
How's driving life, Mr. Smith? Good?
It is adequate, thank you. Yes.
Good.
Yes. I washed a car by hand for the first time in I don't know how long, a couple of days ago.
Well done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got my sexy boot. I can stand up and everything. I can stand up. I managed to do a 3.2-mile walk a couple of Saturdays ago without wanting to kill myself, which is
good.
A win.
The bionic boot.
The bionic boot, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gradually just becoming Batman, aren't you? Just a bit at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the voice will go, I'm Batman. Sorry.
I can see it. I think
Bootman.
I ain't no Christian Bale, though, let's be honest. Unless you want a camp Batman, that might be more fun.
I think there's room
for... Ooh, I'm Batman.
There's definitely room for it.
Yeah. Well, when you said you're a sexy boot, I immediately thought of kinky boots.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
The playwright.
I love how your mind went to thigh-high boots. Brilliant. Love that. Yeah.
We did it.
That's what they are, Carlos. It's a musical that you don't do musicals, so that reference would have been totally wasted.
Right. Actually, Meg and I spent the whole last weekend in New York City, and we did a Hades Town again, the Broadway play.
Oh.
We saw it here in Charlotte, but
yeah,
it was so good that we wanted to see it.
Yeah.
In I used to go to the West End.
Yeah.
Every 2 months. That way.
When I went with Owen to New York, we saw Waitress with Jason Mraz, who was playing the Doctor, and we went and saw Miss Saigon, and I have never cried so much in my entire life.
That's always good.
Evil and brutal, and that helicopter effect still to this day melts my mind.
Yeah.
How incredible it was on the stage, because I was like, it took me ages to work out how on earth they were doing it. I think it was Owen actually that sort of said that it was essentially tennis balls on a big rope, being spun round. but because it gave the illusion of and of course the draft, that was the big thing, because we were third or fourth row from the front.
Oh wow!
Because we managed to get like dirt cheap last minute tickets, I think. Like,
well, that's cool.
let me rephrase that. Owen said they were cheap. They may not have been, but they were amazing. They were incredible seats, and I genuinely left it like shell shocked, because it was just I felt broken by the end of it.
There's like a few of those things, right? Like the helicopter from Miss Saigon, the chandelier from Phantom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Elsa changing dresses.
Yep.
Oh my God, that still gets me every time.
It's incredible, isn't it?
How did they do that? How did they do that?
Yeah. If you look closely on TikTok, there's lots of videos that show you how they do that.
I don't want to spoil I don't want to spoil the magic of it. Yeah.
You notice how Carlos is completely zoned out now. It's like, musical theatre.
Amazing.
He's not a fan, are you, Carlos? Which is surprising, seeing how much you love music.
But I always think when you get that sense of, there's just this enormous sense of the entire room of that theatre, if you could bottle that sense of kind of goodness and wellness feeling. And it's just incredible, it's this, you've got a room there full of hundreds of people and everybody's absolutely loving it, and it's just it's just an incredible feeling, and I just love that kind of positivity that you get from an experience like that.
Absolutely. We are season ticket holders here in the Charlotte for the Blumenthal Theater. Just like traveling companies.
Nice. I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something that's about to happen to us when we're off air.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wait to tease.
I know. 30 seconds till clock.
Is this related to a certain radio station?
Yes, that we're not allowed to announce.
Is it good news?
It is. 15 seconds to clock.
How are we doing with that 10, pronunciation there, 9, Carlos?
8, 7.
Freaky triggers.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. God help us, everyone.
Frecce Tricolori.
Lovely. Okay.
You'd be the one at the gelato in Florence asking if they've got any feast bars.
Curly whirlies.
Have you got a twister, mate? Don't like any of this foreign rubbish.
No, what a calippo.
4, 3.
Well, hello and welcome to episode 520 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. My name is Cat Dad, or Kitten Dad, and in this week's show, we have more news on the Heart Aerospace electric aircraft, updates on Heathrow's third runway, a record-breaking pilot, and an airspace infraction over DC. In the military news this week, there's an amazing new livery for a very popular Italian display team. And joining me this week over in the PTUK Master Suite Studio Centre for Global Operations, it's our very own master of the airwaves and self-proclaimed broadcasting geek. It's the wonderful Matt Smith.
Lovely. Let me know when I need to top up this payment that I'm supposed to be sending you, Nick. By the way, with these wonderful intros. Yes, hello. I'm here, live, loud, and proud.
Lovely to see you, Mr. Smith, as always.
Thank you, and you.
Yes. Guess what, Matt?
I don't know what. I don't know what.
You know how I've been with our internet at work for the last about 300 millennia.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Finally today, I'm getting it. Yes, I should. when I get to work tomorrow, I will have actual internet.
Once again, as you know, many of our service providers like to offer false promises, so I wouldn't hold your breath just yet.
Honestly, I left the engineers in my office when I finished at 5 today, and I thought Matt Smith would be
furious,
horrified.
Oh, really? Okay.
Bear in mind they arrived at 2:30 p.m. and they were still there at 5.
Wow, what was wrong? I mean, but BT had already been, hadn't they?
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Fair enough.
Anyway,
it must be on overtime.
Oh, I know. Anyway, so yes, it's nice. Good to see you as always, Mr. Smith. We're getting towards. I say we're getting towards the end of summer. We actually had a nice weather this weekend. Just gone. The weather has actually been quite nice this week.
It has. Although I must admit, I got out of bed at 5:30 this morning, which is what time I usually get out of bed, and it's fair to say that it was still dark. So that came round very quickly, didn't it?
Yes. But we thought we might be back to a skeleton crew again this week. Nev's been kidnapped again, presumably to go and drink overpriced Pinot Grigio on expenses. Captain Andy this week, he's not been here since we had to go and speak to the Swiss authorities about plane things never to be seen again. Last seen running from Geneva Airport duty-free, clutching a large Toblerone, saying, "It's for me mate Nick. OAA there, pet." Oh, my
Beg your pardon.
I do hope Andy doesn't listen back to this.
Wow.
However,
what on earth just happened?
However, in a happy change of events, I'm very pleased to announce and say that joining us back this week, it is, of course, our piloting legend, Armando.
Well, hello, team. It's always great to be back here in person and not in video. And as much as I'd love to see your faces, we still talk all the time. So I'm actually most excited to see everybody in the chat room today. Hello, Kang.
Rude.
No, come on.
No, Armando.
I keyed.
We will definitely have to have a catch up with you towards the end of the show to find out what exciting adventures you've been on in the last few months.
Don't get too excited. We've only got him for an hour.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll catch up with you before you go. Don't worry. And Nick is back this week to do bad regional accents and talk with considerably less authority about aviation matters than our actual resident pilot. So, hello, Nick.
Surely the bad regional accents fall on you, dear.
Nothing to do with me.
No, quite.
I'll leave Nick to offend Andy.
Lovely.
Also, Nick, aren't you the only one that actually has like a college degree related to what we do?
No, I've got a degree related to what I do, which is nothing to do with aviation, sadly.
We're doing engineering, right? It's better than a liberal arts major, and I don't even know what Andy has. Jeez.
Yeah, so I have a degree in product design, and I design products for a living. So
okay, right.
Yeah, so it's vaguely related, but yeah, sadly nothing to do with aeroplanes.
Well, perhaps you could design decent aviation or airline ads, actual for for the TV now.
No, we can't even begin to compete with our retro ads.
No, they're retro.
Those are pretty good. Right?
Yeah. Different times, children. Different times.
Yeah. I know. Right, let's have a look and see who is in the chat room this week. Let's start at the top of the list. It's Richard Adams, who was one of our guests or one of our awesome viewers or listeners who was at Duxford on Saturday. Joined us there. It was good to see you, Richard, and your wife as well. Always good to see you guys at the air show. Joining his son as well, because it was a very, very warm day on Saturday. Mazouz, our local listener, hello to you as well. Great to see you in the chat room. I know Mazouz I think he's over in Boston at the moment. He's over your neck of the woods, Armando. Who else we got? Hobby Time, hello to you as well. Scrolling down the list. Graham Haley, he was also at Duxford on Saturday. Good to see you Saturday, Graham. And actually, Graham spent all day with me and Nev, Matt, which was really nice.
Oh,
He was very, very, very much appreciated, Graham. You were. Our main man, Micah, joining us this week. Good to see you in there, Micah. Always good to see you in the chat room each week. And who else we got? Oh, Nick. Obviously, Nick Codling's in the chat room, keeping an eye on things in there. But yes, Plane Safety Podcast. Good evening to you as well, Pip. Well, nice to see you in there. And Masha. Hello to you, Masha. Good to see you in the chat room, enjoying the show. Don't forget, if you're listening to us as an audio show and you want to see how beautiful we all look, you can join us via YouTube on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock when we're live here broadcasting a show, and join us in the chat room, because the chat room, let's be honest, guys, the chat room are an amazing group of people, aren't they? Absolutely.
They absolutely are.
Right, so we've got loads to get through on the show this week. Our retro airline out of the week, as always, plus loads of great news stories. So we're going to do something slightly different this week, because Armando is unfortunately only going to be able to join us for the first kind of hour of the show. So we've grabbed the show, or Nick has grabbed the show, and kind of switched it round, a bit like one of those timers things, with the sound in.
Right.
That kind of.
Okay.
I like to think we're just flying inverted right now.
Yeah, definitely.
There we go.
Yeah,
so actually, just for the change, Armando, would you like to introduce the first part of the show?
Let's do it. Let's fly inverted. Let's keep up some foreign relations. Matt, hit the button.
What's up, bogeys 135, 50, Angels 16, heading 340. Okay. 108 bogeys.
Okay, this first military story comes from Jonathan Warner, of all people. I can see why he gave us the story, because this is probably going to be a highlight of his year. As soon as he gets to see the Italian Air Force's brand new M346 advanced trainers that were chosen as the successors to the team's current MB339s. In fact, while this initial plan was to equip the Frecce Tricolori with the M345 high-efficiency trainer, that plan was actually scrapped. So once the T345's issues were addressed, the aircraft will be used by the 61st Wing for Phase 2 and 3 training, replacing the aging MB339s. However, the T345 was not deemed suitable for large formation aerobatics, which I'm not sure what certification that is, which is, of course, that's a defining characteristic of the Frecce Tricolori. Instead, the team will benefit from the impressive performance of the new T346 Master, whose enhanced thrust and maneuverability will be crucial in maintaining the breathtaking quality of the team's air displays. This must have been written in Italy. The new aircraft, adorned with the team's brand new livery, was officially unveiled at Estrana Air Base in northeast Italy during a ceremony attended by Italy's Minister of Defense, Guido Crosetto, and the Italian Air Force Chief of Staff, General Luca Goretti. The event celebrated the Frecce Tricolori's return from their North America tour, which was very successful, by the way. That was a monumental effort, in their words, considering the age of their current aircraft. A length of deployment was approximately 90 days, and they went to 9 different air shows, 17 flyovers across the U.S. and Canada. So Matt has some pictures up here of the new livery for that M346 that was designed by Pininfarina, renowned Italian design and engineering firm famous for its work in the automotive industry, particularly in the design of luxury and high-performance vehicles. So the MB339 was born as a replacement for the 326, previously used to train Italian pilots and designed with almost all Italian technology, with the exception of Rolls-Royce Viper engines. That's funny, the Hawker originally had Rolls-Royce Viper engines. The 339 flew for the first time in 1976 and was introduced in service in 1981, immediately demonstrating some great capabilities as an advanced trainer and as a ground attack aircraft. Of course, it became super popular when it was adopted by the Frecce Tricolori in 1982. And of course, the aircraft was exported and had some good success in Argentina, Peru, Malaysia, some other countries. Anyways, you guys can see that Jonathan Warner is probably very excited to see these aircraft in person. Yeah, a little bit modifications required for them to do this. They got some tip tanks. I think they got some extra stuff so they can do some advanced aerobatics, and according to their own spec sheet, it is on the same level as an F-16 fighting Falcon. So for that, they're using it as an aggressor aircraft in some of their other trainings. So pretty cool airplane, and I gotta admit, maybe the best looking display team livery. I think it's pretty good. I mean, the other two are iconic: the Thunder Chickens and the Blue Angels. I mean, don't mess with a good thing, but I think it looks pretty good, pretty smart.
Have you ever seen these guys displaying, Armando, on the circuit or not?
Riyadh. I think Riyadh back in 17, 18, something like that was the first time I saw them. Right, the only time I saw them.
Yeah, I've seen them a few times now. I mean, a couple of times at Riyadh. And they also, I think quite a few years ago, they displayed at Farnborough, at the Farnborough Air Show, when it was still an air show and actually had aircraft flying lots and stuff. But yeah, great paint job. And yeah, like you said, I'm sure Jonathan Warner will appreciate this very much.
Do you guys remember the movie Hot Shots?
Oh, God. And part two.
And part two, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it was Charlie Sheen. I can't remember if those were Alpha Jets used in that movie or if there was this M346. Well, it wasn't a 346, but it was.
It's in Hot Shots.
Yeah.
Top Gear?
And you still haven't seen Airplane. I'm going to keep banging on about it every week until you watch it.
Well, that was
okay. Challenge accepted.
YouTube,
right?
It's so old; it's probably just publicly available. Or
chat room, get on it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Nick, 90% of the chat room could probably recite all of Airplane the movie from start to finish.
It's one of those where you laugh at the jokes before they happen.
Yeah,
you've seen it that
Surely
many
you
times.
can't be serious, Armando.
A hospital? What is it? It's a big building with sick people in it, but that's not important right now. I just wanted to say we're all counting on you, Carlos, for the next story.
Thank you, Armando. Next story. Next story comes to us from someone, don't know who, someone's forgot to put the link in there. Honestly, Nick, what you like. The headline, Canada to deploy maritime patrol aircraft to enforce North Korean sanctions. So Canada will soon deploy a maritime patrol aircraft to the Asia-Pacific region to support enforcement of trade sanctions against North Korea. Following the meeting in Tokyo between Canadian and Japanese officials, Ottawa on the 13th of September announced the deployment of the Lockheed Martin P-3 Orion maritime patrol aircraft detachment to Japan, which will support the UN mission enforcing an embargo against certain goods entering North Korea. Sanctions against Pyongyang were approved by the UN Security Council in response to North Korea's efforts to develop nuclear weapons. The restrictions ban the trade of weapons and military equipment, among other actions. Ottawa plans to replace its fleet of 14 CP-140 maritime patrol aircraft, the local designation for the Lockheed Martin's P-3 Orion, with Boeing 737 Poseidons, or the P-8A Poseidons, as we know. Ottawa says its naval patrol mission will monitor for suspected maritime sanctions evasions activities, in particular ship-to-ship transfers of fuel and other commodities banned by the UN Security Council. The P-3 detachment, which the Royal Canadian Air Force operates under local designation CP-140 Aurora, includes one aircraft, 50 personnel. Operations are scheduled to begin later this month and will run through October. Ottawa has been stepping up its presence in the Indo-Pacific region. It created a bilateral action plan with Japan in 2022, vowing heightened enforcement of trade sanctions against North Korea, with a particular focus on illicit ship-to-ship transfers. And Canadian aircraft on routine sanctions and enforcement patrols have in the past been harassed by Chinese military fighters, including a 2023 incident involving an Royal Canadian Air Force CP-140 loaded with journalists and senior military officers being aggressively intercepted How do you aggressively intercept someone? By Xinyang J-16 and Xingyu J-10 fighters over the East China Sea. The Chinese jets flew a few meters off the Aurora's wing. The Royal Canadian Air Force plans to replace its aging fleet of 14 Auroras with the P-8 Poseid Maritime Patrol jets, and the 2023 deal includes $5.9 billion for 14 of the 737 next-gen based aircraft, with options for an additional 2. So, Armando, how do you aggressively intercept someone?
I'll tell you exactly. April 1st, 2001. There was an AV-P3 flying off the coast of Hainan Island, and there was a Chinese J-8 with the pilot. His name was Wang Wei. It really was. It was Lieutenant Commander Wang Wei. But yeah, they get pretty aggressive. Both the Russians and the Koreans and the Chinese have gotten aggressive in there. And there's bumping techniques. There's ways to there's sort of like an international standard of how you're going to intercept another aircraft, and Captain Nick has talked about it over the years, but it's actually more common than you think. You guys do it, the RAF and the Navy, they're patrolling those coastal waters, but there's kind of like an international unspoken standard on how we're going to do this safely. But when you start trying to bump jets and you're starting to go in a closer formation, because it's a dissimilar formation, right? You have a pretty big P3 or a RC-135 or P-8 Poseidon, these big ISR airplanes. And if you get closer than they're expecting, things kind of happen. And the Russians are really good about doing a zoom climb right in front of the nose to create a bump. So, but in that case, the J-8 hit the nose of the P3, and the crew did a great job of getting it on the ground because they actually took off the nose cone. Could have done more damage. Yeah. No, they actually hit each other. In the crew of the P3, I think Lieutenant Shane Osborne was the aircraft commander, and they did a pretty good job of getting it to the nearest piece of land. They ended up being captive for the next 10 days by the Chinese government while everything got sorted out. So that is how you aggressively intercept.
I had visions of the flight deck officers sort of going, come on, Ed, like this out the window at the other. No, being aggressive, but no.
So no use of a Polaroid camera then.
Yeah. Did you ever think about the logistics of that scene? Like literally flying up inverted, keeping up foreign relations. When the canopies showed that close, you're like, there's no way the tails would hit. Like, there's no way.
Of course, we all think it, Armando. You never say anything, though, right?
Right. Still the best movie ever.
Exactly.
Yeah, true that. Right, so that is our little military segment for this week. And
that's it. Okay, bye.
That's it. Bye. Actually, no, we did try and find and locate another story. Unless you've got a story you want to give us, Armando. But
no. Let's press on. Let's do some commercial stuff.
Right. Hit the button, Mr. Smith.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
So this first story in the commercial news segment this week comes from the standard.co.uk. And it's hot on the heels of our discussion last week. I know, the Standard. Hot on the heels of our discussion last week about the runway ops at London Heathrow. We've got an article about the growth and expansion at that airport. Heathrow's second coming of the third runway is approaching, apparently. Almost 8 million passengers passed through the hub in August, its fourth consecutive record-breaking month this summer. So did anyone see this coming? I think you could have safely predicted a big lift on passenger numbers at London's airports after COVID restrictions were lifted, as sun-starved holidaymakers got back into the habit of flying after 2 summers of grumpy family staycations under gloomy British skies. Yeah, this summer's been all right, but not that brilliant. But that would be a temporary catch-up phenomenon that would have topped out once, but the pent-up demand had been met. Well, far from it. On the contrary, the British public appear to have discovered a newfound enthusiasm for foreign travel that runs counter to the prevailing wisdom about the hard-pressed consumer reining in spending. Just look at the frankly remarkable numbers at Heathrow. Almost 8 million passengers passed through the hub back in August this year. Its fourth consecutive record-breaking summer. That puts in the running for 12-month total at 82.6 million passengers, and means Heathrow is well on track to set a new record for traffic in 2024. The airport also set records for its busiest ever day on the 18th of August and its busiest ever week from the 13th of August to the 19th. The Taylor Swift concert alone accounted for 40,000 extra passengers. The airport can cope with the new boom for now, but capacity limits will be sorely tested again soon if these trends continue. And that can only mean one thing: the third runway scheme, officially under review since the outbreak of the pandemic, will come back into play. It'll be a big shout politically and economically, but it's hard to see how Labour's growth agenda can be achieved without the bold, large-scale infrastructure projects that Heathrow expansion represents. Clearing it for takeoff will, of course, unleash a huge campaign of opposition from residents across a swathe of West and South London, Southwest London, much of it now in Labour's hands. It will be a long and bloody battle, but the political playing field has palpably tilted back towards economic growth and away from the green agenda since it was last up for discussion. Now, I was reading a story yesterday, Matt, online about our very own airport here, London Norwich.
Yes.
And obviously, as most of you guys and girls will know, and Matt knows as well, we had one of the big players move into Norwich this year, being Ryanair, flying through routes, Faro and Portugal. I'm
going to shock you slightly now, because I have also read the same article, I think, which said that, correct me if I'm wrong, that they have now confirmed the winter schedule is staying as it is.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a big thing, because a lot of people were umming and ahhing about whether they would pull out. But by all accounts, Ryanair are very happy with what Norwich has been providing.
But he did also hint of an announcement possibly at the end of this month that Ryanair may well be adding some extra routes as well to Norwich. So keep your eyes on that one. But it just proves, as this story says, that people are wanting to go on holiday. The airports are definitely busier. I know that Stan said when I flew out of there in May this year, and also with you as well, Matt, when I've flown out there before, it's a busy airport. But I don't know how that reflects with you guys over in the US, Armando. I mean, we can definitely see a definite change in the UK with how busy the airports are here.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, here in little old Charlotte, North Carolina, we're getting a fourth parallel runway. They broke ground on that last year at some point. And it's, political winds change, right? I mean, every few years, it's the career bureaucrats, the city planners that have to kind of keep these efforts going, because if you look at the growth, I mean, Atlanta is another great example. Atlanta started out with two tiny little runways, 3,000-foot runways back in 1920 something, and now it's 5 different runways, and they just had to continue to expand and expand and expand. Unfortunately, sometimes that comes at the cost of land acquisition where there are people living. So you've got to do that responsibly, social responsibility on behalf of the government there. But it's not going to go away. Aircraft are going to continue to be a more and more common form of travel. And I mean, do you ever foresee Heathrow closing from either noise pollution or overcrowding, and then maybe a new Gatwick or something on the north end of London, maybe Stansted expansion? Because that has happened over the years. You guys were talking about Istanbul airport 2 weeks ago, I think, on the show. Yeah, so I mean, sometimes the airport just outgrows its capacity and you just have to start from scratch. Denver was a great example of that. They had to build Denver International Airport out in the middle of nowhere. It's halfway to Kansas, I think, from Denver.
But is there an argument again? Let's refer what Carlos was talking about at the moment, like one of Ryanair's solutions, if you like, to the lack of slots in say Stansted as an example, is to actually provide services in some of the more rural airports, of which Norwich is definitely sort of fits that brief. It's got a long enough runway that you can get a 7-3 in and out easily enough, but you've got, it's a much smaller airport. It is by definition much quieter. It's generated lots of new jobs for Norwich Airport. It's really making quite a big impact locally, and they're still filling the planes.
Yeah, that is certainly happening here. I mean, we have, especially with carriers like Spirit, Allegiant, Avelo, Breeze, Frontier, those kind of low cost carriers right now are definitely taking the European model. Actually, up by Micah up there, Bedford is a big airport now. That used to be, I think, an Air Force base or something like that, or Hanscom Air Force Base. But Orlando is a great example where now there's flights going into Kissimmee, going into Lakeland, going into Daytona. Yeah, so there is a lot of relief from the smaller single runway, maybe 2 runway regional airports. So it does come into play here in the U.S. also.
Yeah, I was going to say if they did decide, Matt, to add more routes, there's one thing that definitely needs to change, and that would be to build a bit more infrastructure at Norwich, because I know that a few people who I've spoken to who have flown from there this year have said that it can be quite busy within the restaurant area after you go through security at Norwich with a full 189 passengers, which is obviously what they have.
And I think they basically just had like a burger chain and something else, I think, at Norwich.
Yeah, it's like a snack shop and a small restaurant. And it's not huge.
But then also looking at it from the airport's perspective, until they get some form of guarantee that services are going to remain there relatively long term, which, let's be honest, is not something that Ryanair will tell them. You can see it from the airport's perspective. They can't necessarily afford to invest, because the trouble is, if you take those services out of Norwich, then you haven't got the footfall to keep the restaurants open if they've opened, say, a second like outlet.
I think they'll definitely commit. They'll definitely commit to some more. I think. Do you remember back when Ryanair announced that they were going to start these routes from Norwich? I know that one of the reports said that they were slightly hesitant with this work, with the airport bringing enough passengers at Norwich. Obviously, being where we are here, it is kind of out of the way on the east coast of the UK, and I know that they have been quite pleasantly surprised at how popular that those 3 routes that they currently do have been. And I think when I read online this week, it said that they were hitting 93% load factors on those flights,
which is great. I mean, those are numbers that are not too dissimilar at Stansted, which I think is great.
Yeah, I think Southend is a really good example, right? I mean, it had passengers in the 40s, and then it kind of was a municipal airport, and then once Stobart came in, right, 2008, I was over there. They built that terminal, and they started, building that up as a commercial relief for London. So it happens.
That, I'll tell you what they could do, Matt. Food trucks. But where would you put them? You can't really, once you've gone through security,
airside.
You
certainly can't put them airside, can you? Let's be honest. That's a whole heap of like thing, sort of. That's a slightly terrifying thought, I suppose. I mean, with what you're saying there, Armando, I mean, it's just like the worry. I guess there are lessons that can be learned from Southend as well, because they did have Ryanair flights going in there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos, but haven't they pulled their flights from Southend now? And I know,
EasyJet did.
Right. Okay.
I think I've got a feeling. I think I read some of the EasyJet are going back into Southend again.
2025.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I knew they were in. They'd actually done really well at Southend, and it was only because of COVID that they pulled the flights out of Southend. But I flew from Southend with EasyJet to Malta. It is such a nice drive. You know yourself, Matt. It's a lovely drive.
Nice
Southend, and the airport is phenomenally easy to get through. Southend is amazing.
But then Norwich is easy to get through as well.
Yeah, that's what I always thought about Norwich.
It's the same thing, isn't it? It's the smaller regional airports, and dare I say it, is that the answer rather than a third runway at London?
We'll have London Beccles next.
Yeah, it's an answer. Yes, no fair. Okay, yeah.
Right, Armando, you've got the next story, and someone's been a bit naughty your side of the pond.
Oh boy, have they? So a 737. This is a contract aircraft currently supporting J.D. Vance, who is the running mate for Donald Trump. He's the current vice president, Republican nominee. This aircraft inadvertently turned right into the heart of one of the most restricted pieces of sky on the planet this week as it left Washington Reagan National Airport. The aircraft passed right over the World War II Memorial, across from the Washington Monument, in a route that took it between the White House and the Lincoln Memorial. This is a very tiny, piece of airspace. It's incredibly restricted. It's not a secret that it's restricted. How this happens, I have no idea. According to the FAA, all they said was pilot deviations can occur in several different ways, and airborne deviations can occur when pilots stray from assigned heading, altitude, or an instrument procedure, or if they penetrate controlled or restricted airspace without ATC clearance. As you guys know, the Brasher warning, the first sign of trouble is when ATC calls you and says, "We've got a number for you to copy," which is usually that ATC facility. These guys got a number. They actually got a number from leaving Washington Reagan. Anyway, there's a Washington, D.C., 60 miles from the center of Washington, D.C. is all a special flight rules area. It's called a CIFRA. This is in all directions from the ground to 18,000 feet. Everybody, general aviation pilots, we have to do training going into there. It's very restricted for a VFR airplane to go in there, almost borderline IFR with the way they follow you. And then for commercial carriers, it is a special training airport. You have to know what you're doing when you go in there. Matt has some pictures of the routes that 99.8% of other airplanes took in there, except for this one J.D. Vance 737. Anyway, I don't know what they were doing. It's a charter, so maybe they're, it's new. It's not maybe they're not airline pilots. Maybe they haven't flown in there. It's not traditionally, there's no business traffic that goes into Washington Reagan Airport because it is so restricted. That has to go to Washington Dulles or Frederick or Leesburg or something. Anyway, so these guys just...
So forgive my naivety here. I mean... what sanctions essentially occur as a result of something like this? So you've wandered into, you've been given a number, as you say. Essentially, what happens next? What's the next process?
Well, if they're smart, they'll call their lawyer when they get on the ground. For us little people, a lot of us participate in AOPA's pilot protection program. Or pilot protection services, and the first thing you do is call that number and say, "I just got a Brasher warning from an ATC facility. What do I need to do?" And then there's some basic information that you can give them, but basically you don't volunteer a bunch of information. Unfortunately, who's going to take the hit for this is the pilot, the PIC. They are the one that's going to receive a pilot deviation that goes on your record. In addition, whatever charter company is running this aircraft, which I don't know, I can't remember if it if it's said further down. But
I guess especially as you're saying, like it's flying over the White House, it's still going past the the monument and all that kind of thing. I mean, there must be
I don't know.
Your panic, like from an ATC perspective, given what happened, and obviously it was the anniversary this time last week of
9/11, right?
9/11. And then barely a week after that, or a few days after that, we've suddenly got all this. I mean, they must have been proper, you can understand why ATC were a little bit panicked, because you think everything's all okay, but suddenly somebody is doing something that most pilots, I would argue, should probably know that without needing to look at their whatever the.
Not in the moment. Yeah. These guys, any other competent pilot would have pre-briefed. Hey, I'm not here to judge, right? I'm not the FAA, but any other pilot would have pre-briefed ad nauseum the departure procedure out of Washington Reagan, knowing that it is the most restricted airspace probably in the U.S. Aside from maybe Area 51,
right?
But
very different reason.
the departure procedure isn't particularly complicated. It says make an immediate left turn as soon as practical as you depart runway 1. And it could be they had a wrong heading. Maybe they had pre-armed their nav, their lateral navigation on the ground, and the aircraft took ever so slightly a right turn instead of a left turn, and then they corrected it because they eventually did go left. But it is.
I mean, main man Mike has said, Armando, you fly charters, and there's no excuse for those pilots. I mean, does that stand up? I mean, is there a scenario where is it potentially an innocent mistake?
No, because even if what I just talked about, where if you've set up the box wrong or you've set up the automation wrong, that's still your fault. That's still a pilot deviation, and I'm sure it's going to come out to a pilot deviation. Unfortunately, this guy's going to probably get fired. Somebody else will just jump into that 737. But no, it's the pilot and the operator will most likely get. I know for sure they're going to get deviations. Any further action on top of that? I don't know. We'll see.
So again, this is my lack of knowledge on this one. Sorry that I'm asking all these questions really, but is it ACARS? Is that the word that I'm looking for? What the information that comes, because it's like the NOTAMs and all that kind of thing. I mean, the screens in the aircraft, would that, because it was nearby, would there be, if you'd essentially done your research correctly, presumably the restricted area would have been, even if you didn't know the area at all, for example.
This particular departure procedure out of runway 1 is a published procedure, so although it is a restricted area, it is the same as any other procedure that you would follow leaving Atlanta or Chicago or Denver, in which you have very close proximity aircraft. You cannot make a right turn when it says go left. So ACARS is more of a communications method when you're either on the ground or in the air. This would have been a pre-programmed departure procedure out of the runway, which they would have done hopefully hundreds of times, thousands of times in their careers. In the departure procedure, it actually says use caution with a west wind. If there is a wind from the west, as soon as you lift off, the wind is going to push you towards the restricted area. That is actually a notice in the departure procedure. So, by the way, I think it's Eastern Airlines. Believe it or not, how they're a charter company now. It seems like they're the ones that are running this. This
what you were saying, Armando, about when you get a pilot deviation, it goes on your record. Like when you get a speed and fine here in the UK, it stays on your license for 3 years and then it gets wiped off. In this case, is that something that stays on your pilot, your license forever, or is there a time limit to when that gets taken off or removed? Or
well, the enforcement of a pilot deviation takes, it could stay on there. You could do what's called a 709 ride which is basically an FAA examiner will come fly with you to ensure that you actually do know what you're doing. Because to be honest, like we don't, aside from going to recurrent training, right? So I'm going to put on my Charter 737 pilot hat. There's no real check rides other than your recurrent every year, which is done in a simulator, and that's focusing more on emergency procedures, high and hot, aircraft performance things, all the stuff that Andy does on a day-to-day basis. But there's no real check ride aside from your company giving you. So Eastern Airlines is a Part 135 airline charter right now, so that you only really get an internal company 299 check, which is a pilot proficiency ride. So there's a long time between you and the FAA. So enforcement, to get back to it, you could do a 709 ride. They could just have a discussion with you about it, and it could get expunged or it could get on your record. You might have to do additional training. I think the enforcement of a pilot deviation pretty much spans the whole spectrum from getting your pilot license revoked, 100% revoked, you will never fly again, to a slap on the wrist.
Interesting.
Very interesting indeed, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Nick, if you're ready, you've got the next story. And the picture of this engine looks to me like they've taken a CFM and removed the cowlings. But anyway.
What's a CFM?
It's an engine manufacturer.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Anyway, so this one did catch my eye. The picture of it on the article, it's actually from Flight Global. So Airbus is targeting a 25% efficiency gain, 25% from next narrow body with help from CFM's Rise. So Airbus Chief Executive Guillaume Faury has made clear he expects the European airframer's next narrow-body jet will be 25% more efficient than today's models. That's a bold claim. And he's banking on CFM International's in-development open-rotor engine to get there. We're targeting 25% fuel burn, Fowry said on the 10th of September. Obviously, the Rise engine will contribute to it. So Rise is revolutionary innovation for sustainable engines. And it's CFM's effort to develop an open rotor power plant for the next generation of narrow-body jets. So essentially what we're looking at is, as it says, open rotors. So it kind of just looks like a turboprop engine, effectively. It's kind of mad to think that you might end up seeing what look like turbojet engines on what would otherwise be a jet aircraft. So it'll be interesting to see how they look. So Airbus and Boeing are expected to bring these to the market by the mid 2030s. So CFM, which is jointly owned by GE and Safran Aircraft Engines, has said that the power plant will be 20% more efficient than the LEAPs that power today's A320neo family jets. 20% more, that's incredible. And as well as the 320neo, it's the 737 MAX as well. So Airbus has been assisting with the project, and CFM plans in the second half of the decade to begin flight testing on an open rotor demonstrator using an A380. Now, I think I have seen some pictures of that. I don't know if you can quickly find something on Google, Carlos. I can see you're furiously working away on the keyboard there. So we're working with CFM to test the Rise engine to make sure the noise, vibration, performance, installation losses, certification items, everything can work good enough so we can select the engine, Fowry says. His 25% efficiency target aligns with other industry expectations. And Boeing's former CEO, David Calhoun, said numerous times in recent years that the US company's next narrow-body jet must be 20 to 30% more efficient than the MAX. NASA, meanwhile, has several programs underway to develop technologies the agency says could make future narrow-body jets 25% more efficient. Those programs involve developing hotter burning turbofans and hybrid electric systems, and testing a truss-braced wing aircraft with Boeing, which we've had on the show previously. The two aircraft manufacturers are expected to launch development of their next narrow-body jets this decade, but neither have disclosed details, although we have had some murmurings about the 797. They have shied from committing to power plant architectures as engine makers settle on their own development strategies and progress with testing. CFM insists its open rotor engine is the way of the future, saying the design can achieve an efficiency step change. Because open rotors lack the nacelles and other surrounding structures, they tend to weigh less than traditional ducted turbofans and allow for an increased bypass ratio, translating into improved fuel efficiency. So they're a fairly radical break from today's turbofans and therefore pose new risks and challenges. And the designs will necessitate a lot of changes because it has a much bigger fan and therefore more interferences, Fowry says. It's more difficult to integrate the engine on the plane, so it requires a lot of additional work and study. So yeah, it's pretty interesting looking thing. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I see these contra-rotating propellers, they just kind of melt my brain a little bit, and I can never really, in spite of somebody that considers themselves to be fairly technical, I just can't get my head around how the contra-rotating propellers actually work. And I mean, this thing, it is a wild-looking engine. I mean, it looks absolutely superb. I don't know if you've been able to find an image of the one on the A380 there, Carlos?
I think I may have. I don't know whether it's appeared in the folder. I did find one that they used. Armando will probably have seen this before on the. Is it the MD? I think it was the MD-90 where they ran a test bed prop engine on one side.
Micah was talking about that in the chat room. They were going to the MD-80s were going to be re-engined with these kinds of open. Yeah.
Armando, I wanted to sort of pick your brain a little bit about this because it's always been my understanding that by having a ducted turbofan, the ducting actually helps to, I guess it's better for vectoring the thrust, but also my understanding was that ducting it would actually help to generate more efficiency. But this would seem to suggest, I don't know whether it's simply that by not having it ducted that it allows you to run bigger fan blades.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very quickly out of my comfort zone on this because I was under the same assumption. I thought that we had worked towards these high bypass ratio engines, and that was, obviously something is going to come along in the future. But like the guys are saying in the chat room, that the uncontained engine failures, you're talking about, the diameter of the prop or the rotor, or whatever we're calling it. It's been done before. Obviously, it can be done again. These guys are working on it, especially if Pratt & Whitney, Rolls-Royce are working on it. But it's very quickly like outside my brain comprehension because I would not have thought that we were going to go back to something like this.
No, it's pretty wild efficiency claims though, aren't they? I mean, that is a big jump.
It is. Darren Smith is saying, I saw the MD-80 UDF flight at Farnborough, very noisy.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I wonder if that could end up kind of ruling it out because obviously a lot of work's gone on. You've got the kind of, I can't remember what they call them now. You've got the kind of like the serrated kind of fluted tail cone on the engines on the Dreamliner is sort of quite famously got that, and I think that's got some big improvements with the noise, and a lot has obviously gone on to reduce the noise output of jet aircraft. So yeah, that could kill it really, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think certainly. So. I mean, noise abatement is already an issue. Micah put a link in the chat room to the prop fan. Maybe we can put that in the show notes because it's got some links to those 1970s developments on these kinds of engines.
Similar to the picture we had on just a moment ago. I'm just looking at this, the McDonnell Douglas Pratt & Whitney Allison.
Yeah. Which is Rolls-Royce bought Allison now, so it's crazy.
Very strange.
Right, Matt.
Hey, you know what? We could reach out to Peter.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. definitely.
We'll squeeze this one in from you, Matt, before Armando has to go in a moment.
Yep.
But going back to something that would be very handy to get through the traffic near where we are here.
Right, yes, okay. We're talking eVTOLs. I'm never quite sure how to say them.
eVTOL.
Ooh, I like the way you say that. That sounds Italian when you said eVTOL.
eVTOL. Yeah, it comes with its free bowl of pat. No, I'm not going to finish that before
That's Nick's job.
That's it, yeah. Absolutely. I'm getting hate mail from Jenny, which I would never ever want. Yes, vertical-aerospace.com is the source on this one. And we've talked a lot about Vertical Aerospace's new eVTOL and their development work. And it continues at pace from their base at the Cotswolds Airport in Gloucestershire. So Vertical's new VX4 prototype completes phase 1 of piloted testing, and unfortunately my machine just appears to have frozen. Here we go. Phase 1 included tethered flights, ground taxi testing and high-powered ground runs, all with a pilot on board. Vertical is now preparing to progress to piloted untethered thrust-borne testing as soon as it receives permission from the UK Civil Aviation Authority. The VX4 went from its first powered ground test to wheels up in just 1 week, 3 times faster than the previous prototype. Vertical Aerospace has achieved another significant milestone. Its latest VX4 has completed the first phase of its piloted flight test program at the Vertical Flight Test Centre. During phase 1, the VX4 prototype conducted multiple piloted tethered flights and ground runs across 20 piloted test sorties, completing a total of 70 individual test points. Together, these tests simulated various aspects of flight and operational situations needed to validate the prototype's safety in real-world flight scenarios, including those outside of its expected operating conditions. By intentionally testing the aircraft's ability to handle failures, Vertical demonstrated the underlying safety of its design. One of the most important tests successfully carried out included simulating the failure of one electric propulsion unit in operative testing while in piloted tethered flight to ensure the aircraft responds correctly and continues to be safe while in flight conditions. These tests have enabled engineers to collect and measure 35,000 flight and system parameters and verified that all systems are operating correctly and safely in different conditions ahead of further expanding the flight test envelope to piloted thrust-borne flight. Alongside phase 1 testing, Vertical's engineers also completed more advanced low and high speed taxi tests, including deliberately failing EPUs at high taxi speeds to confirm controllability and safety. This verified ground handling characteristics throughout the taxi envelope, as well as aerodynamic characteristics for increasing speed while in a safe ground test environment. Vertical is continuing to work closely with the UK Civil Aviation Authority on expanding its permit to fly, and it prepares for phase 2 of testing, which will see the VX4 prototype undergo piloted thrust-borne flight tests. Vertical is currently developing an identical full-scale prototype which will accelerate the VX4's flight test program and demonstration capability. The company will take flight test learnings from both prototypes into the design and development of the certified VX4 model. CEO of Vertical Aerospace, Stuart Simpson, said it took us just 1 week to go from our first ground test to our chief pilot flying the VX4, and we have been making outstanding progress since then. We continue to prove the safety and performance of our design and technology, which we believe to make market leading. Completing this first phase of testing is a significant feat for any eVTOL company and shows the strength of our aircraft team and our partners as we progress through our flight test program and head towards our goal of creating a better way to travel. There we go.
Well, it's an interesting aircraft, that's for sure, and one I think, Armando, you'd be very well fit to fly.
Well, the story that Nick put in there is interesting because it came from Vertical Aerospace. So that's coming from the company. It was on 12 September. Yesterday, the company reported a 20 million pound operating loss. So $26 million loss. And they split their stock trying to find a new investor. And that's after receiving a $34 million settlement from Rolls-Royce because Rolls-Royce pulled out of the engine deal. So we may or may not ever see the Vertical aircraft, this company, Vertical.
Does it? So, I mean, in many ways, it looks like a sort of strange Osprey, to be fair, with its sort of. I suppose the only similarity being, I suppose it's just a big drone, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, it does have articulating motors. You know, I think mostly most of these guys are kind of doing that. Joby, Archer, Vertical. They're all some sort of either the engine tilt or the wing tilt or something. So it's all kind of Osprey-esque. I'm going to coin that term, Osprey-esque. I think the big advancements are really in the batteries, the flight control systems, how to keep it all safe and flying, you know, in the right direction. I think the unmanned aerial systems or drone technology has proven that this kind of aerodynamic concept can work, but
does it have legs though? That's the question. I mean, you know,
right?
You'd have thought people would be very excited about this, and that finding additional funding would be less of a challenge.
Yeah, it's tepid. The market is tepid on it. Joby's got the biggest market share of this at just over $6 million. But I don't know. Everybody else just kind of seems to be like just barely hanging in there. And yeah, I'm surprised there's not more excitement. So
yeah, I've run a few stories on this one because I feel like their development has been sort of continuing quite quickly, and they're obviously keen to try and demonstrate as much of their technology as they can as quickly as they can, and you know, as you've alluded to there, they need money, and I think we've seen a lot of these eVTOL organizations or startups doing deals with airlines, and that, you know, I think there's been one that you may have mentioned that I think has done quite a lucrative deal with Emirates, and that's obviously quite a nice way for them to be able to fund their development costs, which must be pretty staggering, I should imagine. So yeah, it would be a pity for them to fail at this point, because they seem to have been making really good strides, and you know, things are really coming along. So we shall have to keep an eye on this one and see how it goes.
Yeah, like the pessimist in me just says, you know, the smaller guys will get bought out by the bigger guys, and that technology will just, you know, transition over to the new company, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah,
we're going to end up with something.
Dirk S has got the best idea, Armando, in the chat room there.
What did he say? Oh, let's start another eVTOL company and call it Chubby Drone. That's got a couple different meanings, huh?
Anyway, maybe do you want to take the last one or next one, Armando, before you have to go?
What do we got? Number 5 here. Well, actually, Carlos, why don't you take it, because my dog is going crazy right now.
Okay. Are you going to skip off now?
No, I'll be right back.
Okay. This next one comes to us from aerotime.aero, and this is pretty damn cool. 19-year-old pilot flies around the world solo to raise £1 million for cancer research. 19-year-old pilot Ethan Gale is currently flying solo around the world with his small aircraft to raise £1 million for stage 4 blood cancer, child cancer research at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. Gao, who turned 19 in 2024 in July, aims to be the youngest person to fly solo to all 7 continents with a 50-year-old Cessna 182 aircraft. Gao plans to travel for 100 days and cover around 80,000 kilometers or 50,000 miles. By September the 10th this year, Gao had already visited 48 continuous US states and flown across the Atlantic 3 times, totaling over 700 hours in the air. According to his official fundraising website, the 19-year-old pilot is currently in Switzerland. Gao plans to visit 60 countries, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, India, Indonesia, Australia, the Philippines, China, and Japan, and cross the Northern Pacific to Alaska. He'll then continue through Canada and the US before finally heading to South America and Antarctica. Gao began his journey back in May this year, departing from Memphis, Tennessee. The teen pilot began flying lessons at the age of 13, earned his private pilot's license at the age of 17, and according to his website, when he first discovered flying, Gao learned the youngest pilot to have circumnavigated the world was 19 at the time, giving him 6 years to set a new record. Finding the joy and knowledge in aviation genuinely fascinated, he said, I decided not only to start learning, but also to bring meaning to my learning experience by aiming to break the record, he detailed. Before the trip, Gao removed the rear seats from his Cessna 182 and to accommodate an additional fuel tank. And the teen pilot can fly for up to 17 hours at a speed of 140 to 150 knots. Additionally, the aircraft has a satellite connection with its ground team and 3 emergency locator transmitters on board. The flight was inspired by his cousin, who is diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Gao said that he wanted to inspire and help as many people as possible who are suffering from the disease. He said, as a young man, I watched the disease affect the people closest to me, such as my grandparents and aunts, and little by little, since then, I decided to do what I could do for cancer research, Gao added. The 19-year-old pilot is documenting his journey on TikTok, claiming he is trying to inspire other people by challenging the impossible and pushing limits. He said to help more people pay attention and gain a better understanding of cancer, he'll be documenting its impact worldwide during his journey, he added. And as of September the 11th, 2024, Gao has already raised $37,870 US. Oh, he's doing well, Armando. Definitely doing well.
Anytime that we see any one of these stories, it's always nice to at least be able to, publish it on the show and put the links in the show notes. And I wish every single one of these young men and women the best in doing this. It's very dangerous, obviously, undertaking. It's probably expensive, but you know what? Especially when we see young people do this, this is certainly not what I was thinking about when I was 17. I was thinking about flying, but I was eating hot dogs and Cheetos and butter sandwiches to get an hour of flight time.
I'm excited for the charity that, it's so nice that this is being done as a way of raising money for an awesome charity. That, for me, is that, I don't know, perhaps I'm getting a little bit tired of the youngest person to ever do this, or, the first 17-year-old to do that. Perhaps I'm getting a little tired of those, but the fact that he's doing this with a view to raising lots of money for a really good charity is why I'm excited about it.
Yeah, St. Jude's is an amazing organization. And I've, as I traveled more and more to the Mayo Clinic and MD Anderson clinic here in the U.S., I've realized that St. Jude's I've learned that St. Jude's is really just right up there with those kinds of world-class medical organizations.
Brilliant. Yeah,
I've just looked on his website, which is ethansflightagainstcancer.com.
Love that.
Currently, he's in Bangladesh.
Oh,
nice.
Which is pretty cool. So if anyone wants to go and check that out, there's some good stuff on there. Actually, it's got a sort of diagram of what his route's going to be. It's amazing. Really, really cool.
Now, Mondo, you still good?
I'm gonna have to take off pretty quick to go get Maddie from school. So.
Yeah, roger that. Well, thanks for joining us, Armando. It's been lovely to have you back on this week. And make sure you come back soon. Definitely come back soon and see us.
Sounds good, guys.
Catch up. All right. Take care, Armando.
See you later.
See ya. Later.
Now, Matt,
yes,
you have got the next story, and I love the headline for this story.
Right. Okay. Okay, fair enough. USA Today is the source on this one, and the headline is Man arrested for running naked through aircraft, knocking over flight attendant. As you do. A Virgin Australia flight from on Monday was forced to turn around after a passenger ran naked through the cabin, pushed over a flight attendant, according to the Australian Federal Police, the AFP. VA Victor Alpha 696 departed Perth as scheduled and was about an hour en route to Melbourne when the incident occurred, causing the pilots to make a U-turn and return to Perth, according to Flight Aware. Appropriate steps were taken by crew in line with protocol to deal with the disruptive passenger, a Virgin Australia spokesperson told USA Today in an email statement. The AFP officers were called to meet the passenger when the plane landed safely back at Perth. AFP officers arrested a man after he allegedly ran naked through the aircraft mid-flight and knocked a crew member off to the floor, an AFP spokesperson told USA Today in said email. The passenger is currently being held at a local hospital for assessment. He is expected to appear before Perth Magistrates Court on the 14th of June, so it's quite an old one, although the charges he will face have yet to be finalised. One of the passengers on board the flight told The Guardian Australia, "All of a sudden I hear this running up the aisle and this guy's got no clothes on and he was just charging towards the front of the plane." The passenger also said that there was a lot of yelling and screaming. "The safety of our guests and crew is our top priority and we sincerely apologise to the guests impacted," the airline said. The aircraft continued to Melbourne and landed 28 minutes late. Last month, an unruly passenger who caused a United Airlines flight to be diverted after threatening to mess up the plane during a loud argument with his girlfriend was charged with $20,638 in restitution fees. So goodness only knows what this individual is going to get. Now,
what's the fine for being naked?
I mean, the thing is it's all about being appropriate at the end of the day, isn't it? Now, I used to do, when I was coach driving, I used to do quite a lot of rugby tours. And this would be, sort of people of a certain age. They're all, in very good shape, shall we say, and very fit. And it would just be a bus full of people who were all that age or older, or but everybody was of a certain age. And the thing is, I mean, that was just, people mucking about. That was, it's not something that would have been taken further. In this scenario, whilst it seems funny, of course, there will be families on that plane, and that's the bit that bothers me, really, to be honest with you. As I say, I mean, I've done, my fair share of coach trips with rugby teams, and it's more of a surprise when somebody doesn't take their clothes off and run down the aisle. But it's that's the thing. It's a group of people who are all together, who all know each other. There aren't young people present, and that's my only objection to this individual doing it for a jape or a joke or whatever. These things have to be done, there's a right time and a right place, and I'm not saying that running down the aisle of a coach which is bombing down the M4 is necessarily the right place to do it either, but it's less of a concern, shall we say, than on an aeroplane where there are families and young people.
Not something I've seen on board an aircraft at all before.
No, indeed.
No. I'm a bit disappointed you didn't do the accent, though, mate.
Right, there we go. That's one.
Sorry, Grant, if you're listening.
That's one for our Australian contingent. Once again, our sincere apologies for if anyone has offended by this evening's events.
Just send Nick an email, he'll be fine. Next up, it's flyingmag.com. And we talked last week about the announcement from Logan Air about their collaboration with Heart Aerospace. And their full-scale demonstrator has been unveiled. And I have to say, it looks really nice. Heart Aerospace unveiled their full-scale demonstrator. Swedish hybrid electric manufacturer Heart Aerospace on Wednesday unveiled their 30-seat demonstrator dubbed Heart Experimental 1 or Heart X1. The aircraft, the company's first full-scale demonstrator of its ES-30 aircraft, which is under development, will serve as a testing platform and marks a major milestone for development of the regional airplane, set to make its fully electric first flight in the second quarter of next year. We'll have to watch that one closely. Heart X1 will initially be deployed for ground-based testing, including taxi turnaround procedures and charging operations, the company said. The aircraft, which boasts 32-metre wingspan, or 105 feet, will produce less emissions and noise pollution and be cheaper to operate in comparison with conventionally fueled regional aircraft, according to the company. They said our industry is approaching a 30-year innovation cycle and we have less than 25 years to decarbonise, they said. The ingenuity and dedication of the team that we're able to roll out a 30-seater aircraft demonstrator with a brand new propulsion system largely in-house in less than 2 years, they said. Early this year, Heart Aerospace announced it had raised $107 million in a Series B round, which was earmarked for the ES30 type certification from the European Aviation Safety Agency, or EASA. It also received $4.1 million grant from the FAA's Fueling Aviation Sustainable Transition, or FAST program, in August for development of the aircraft's hybrid electric propulsion management system. It looks nice. And if they stick to this and it does actually appear next year,
yeah, I've got to say, I was very, very impressed with the complexity of the completeness of this demonstrator, because we put the story in last week, and then literally, I think a day or two later, they unveiled the demonstrator, and this isn't just a space model. This is a fully engineered fuselage, and to have done that in 2 years, as somebody that works in product development, I can tell you that is a really seriously impressive undertaking. So yeah, good luck to them.
I think some of this, though, isn't it? It's like if you don't move fast on these things, like it's frightening how quickly the funding runs out. Almost, it's one of those, isn't it? I guess you've got to find that healthy balance between smashing it out of the park in a short period of time, keeping investors impressed and excited. I think, and maybe that's the problem with the eVTOL project, is it's just been rolling on and rolling on and rolling on, nobody getting anywhere fast.
It is really difficult, because you're essentially, what you're doing is you're trying to design a thing that nobody's designed before, so you don't really know how long it's going to take, and you don't really know how much it's going to cost. So you end up in this kind of weird situation where you're trying to get people to basically throw money at you to make it happen, and for them to kind of really buy into it and believe that it's going to work. And it is really difficult. And it's, and unfortunately, as we've alluded to with the eVTOLs, you do see companies fall by the wayside as a result. But ultimately, eventually it does sort of move the whole industry forward. So, hopefully that's what we'll see. And as I mentioned before, with airlines buying into eVTOLs, we've seen the same with, Logan Air have kind of pitched in a little bit to help towards the development with this. So, yeah, it'd be really nice to see this one go ahead, because I really feel like there is a good, sustainable business case for it.
Indeed. Richard E. Flagg is saying in the chat room, by the way, first electric aircraft that looks good. Got a bit of the Dash 7 look about it. What's the Dash 7?
It has. I had to Google that because I couldn't remember what the Dash 7 looked like. I knew it was very similar to an ATR, but it actually, if you Google the Dash 7, it looks very, very much like this X1. Looks very much like this X1. And bear in mind, the Dash 7 was first flown back in 1975. But yeah, it's very, very similar. But I do like the look of this new X1. Perhaps we need to reach out to these guys, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it'd be good to find out a bit more about it, because, I think, we are definitely going to see a lot more of this. Particularly, I think the thing that's actually really compelling with this one is that it is a hybrid. So you're not just relying purely on electric power, although it can operate purely on electric power if it wants to.
This is the thing. This is what was so exciting about, I suppose the Faraday model was essentially the motor was electric. That didn't change, but its power source could be utilised. At the moment the batteries aren't up to the job. However you dress it up, the batteries just aren't ready. They're not there yet. in terms of that, and you know, in order to get the range that you need, they're so ridiculously heavy and all this kind of thing that it, you know, means that you can't have as many passengers, you know. And maybe that is the answer in the short term, is, you know, being able to run these things with much smaller power generators, if you like, APs, you know, APU.
Yeah, essentially it is an APU. Yeah, exactly
indeed.
that.
You know, with a high voltage output and, you know, high ampage, etc., to get the drive, while the technology isn't quite there. I mean, although this seems to be more a bit like your car, doesn't it? With the where you get the hybrid models where it'll use power as and, you know, battery as and when it can or when there's juice, but then we'll use, you know, fuel.
I think this is a bit more akin to a kind of an electric vehicle that has a range extender. So in essence, what you're doing is you're having some form of internal combustion in order to generate more electricity to supplement the power from the batteries.
Which is how most hybrids work, isn't it?
I think probably the vast majority of hybrids actually have an internal combustion engine which will provide drive directly to the wheels.
Right.
And they will be supplemented by electric motors, and the electric motors are very much a kind of in a minority in terms of their power compared to the internal combustion engine. Whereas what we're doing here is we're using internal combustion purely to generate electricity, and it doesn't provide any of the motive power.
Yeah, so it's an all electric aircraft. It's just at the moment it's using you know, a generator or a, you know,
correct. Yeah. And I to be honest with you, I do genuinely feel that is the way to go in the short term. Yeah,
indeed. Richard Adams is saying the Cranfield hydrogen fuel cell project is a better bet. Interesting.
Hydrogen.
Yeah. I mean, that's I suppose it's one of the biggest issues with the hydrogen thing, though, is the initial kick to do it, isn't it? We're at a scenario at the moment where we rely on, you know, like a high energy kick in order to generate the hydrogen.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, it's definitely got legs. Don't get me wrong. And I know there is a project. I'm sure I watched a YouTube video or something where there was a massive sun like solar panel type sort of scenario which was providing the kick. You know, in the desert somewhere to sort of get the ball rolling with the generating of the hydrogen. You know, so, you know, it's that absolutely has a future, I think. But it's one of those. I don't know if we're quite there yet.
Yeah, we just simply don't have the infrastructure at the moment, and that's the big problem.
You know, you're having to use fossil fuels to start the process.
Exactly.
Which I guess, you know, however you dress it up, is there's only going to be a finite amount of that available, and eventually we're going to need another way of doing that kick.
Yep.
Rubber band.
Yes, Carlos. Yes. Well done.
Always here to help.
Myself and Nick are trying to have a very serious conversation about, you know, the future of hydrogen, and your answer is rubber bands. Oh, dear.
Oh, I do love it. Oh, anyway, right. Let's move on with Dirk's favourite part of the show. It's our retro airline ad of the week. So it's been a very popular part of the show. We've still got a big pile of these to bring you each week. But this week, we go back to the 1980s and to one of the most catchy jingles ever made for an airline advert. And this week, it's the turn of Alaska Airlines.
All airlines say they want your business, but when you finally buy a ticket, not all airlines act like it. At Alaska Airlines, we do more than promise good service. We go out of our way to deliver it.
That jingle is going to live in my head rent-free for way too long.
Sky High Airlines.
Okay, you can stop that now. Seriously. Oh my gosh. Oh my god!
I love it. I love it when the flight attendant just brings the little tray of whatever it is, this kind of shriveled up morsel. That's brilliant. That's so good. I wonder if Micah can remember that one in the chat room there.
Yeah, 1980s.
Yeah, that's great.
Honestly, the standard of ads was just so good in those days. And I know You wouldn't get away with half of them nowadays, but yeah.
No, it's a rich vein. I feel like we're not going to get bored of these anytime soon, are we?
No, agreed.
It's one thing you don't. We do this every week, but it's one thing. How often do you see an advert on telly now advertising an airline?
I just don't know that they've got the margins to do it anymore, have they? To do kind of the big budget commercials. Plus, scheduled television's sort of dead anyway, really, isn't it? So
I mean, you do see a lot on social media and that kind of thing. You do see like the BA ad is currently doing a run. You know the one, the signage. There's one that's doing the rounds on there. I can't remember whereabouts it is, and it's a picture of a young child that's pointing in the sky as one goes over, and then it puts up the flight number. That one's been doing the rounds on socials of late. I think a lot of the advertising and stuff goes to when people are sat at their computer, because you never know, they might then sit down and buy a flight somewhere.
Perhaps it's different in the US, because obviously, you may have noticed that nearly all of our retro airline ads that were played out on the show are pretty much all ads from the US. So whether in the US airlines still advertise on mainstream television?
I do remember Ryanair doing an ad campaign a number of years ago.
Oh, that must have been a long while ago.
Yeah. I mean, sort of. I won't say early days of their inception. Flying out of airports here in the UK, but there was definitely one. Richard Adams is saying, I heard it as Mile High initially. Yes, of course you did. Sounds about right. Thank you, Richard.
Honestly, thank you.
He's here every week, everyone.
Yes, we'll have another ad.
Speaking of Richard Adams and a number of other people.
Yeah, Saturday we went over to Duxford Imperial War Museum in Cambridge and went to the Battle of Britain Memorial Air Show Day. It was a fantastic day. Really, really well run, and also it was a massive sellout. I was saying to the guys before we came on air, I've never seen such a packed Duxford for an air show. It was absolutely rammed, and good to see as well. Very good to see. They had the B-17 Sally B flying alongside the Lancaster from RAF Coningsby from the BBMF flight. They were doing a fly past together. That was something to see, I have to say. I've got some pictures of that, which I'll probably we'll probably pop on next week. I'll put it on our socials. They also had Micah's favourite, the PBY Catalina, that was doing a flying display as well. Always good to see that aircraft flying. Plus a whole host of Spitfires, Hurricanes, 109s. There was just aircraft flying constantly all afternoon. It was really, really good to see. And the F-35 was there as well. It's the first time that's ever been seen at Duxford, and that done a display which was not only loud, but very good as well to see.
Is that the one with the new livery, Carlos?
No, this one was... I forget which logo it had on the bag, but it was... Oh, hello. Motorcycle going past somewhere.
I thought I got all excited. I thought I was having a pizza delivery then.
No, it actually done a good hovering display, Nick, on the day. It was very good to see that. But yeah, great display. But while we were there, we got to meet up with Graham Haley. He joined us for the whole day. Our resident ATC guy, Graham, was there. Good to have a chat and a catch-up with him. Richard Adams, as I said earlier, was also there. It was good to chat with him. And we also got a chance to meet up with someone who had flown a little bit further than anywhere in the UK. He'd actually come in from the US. Yeah. And he's also a pilot for a US airline, flies the 757 and 767. He is a regular listener to the show and contributor as well. And we met up at Duxford with listener Sam Dawson. So, Matt, let's go. So you join us here at the Duxford Imperial War Museum in Cambridge for the Battle of Britain Memorial Air Show Day, and Nev's joined me, which is always good to see you, Nev, on your excursion here from the countryside.
Yeah, and it's a great run in. Actually, the organisation is very good as always here, isn't it? It's very easy to get in. We're already 2 bacon rolls down, so that's always a good start to the day. Al would be impressed, I think, wouldn't he? So,
he would.
But no, the weather we've got is just spot on. It's sort of about a 5-knot sort of southwesterly, something like that, I think, and promise of sunshine all day. So I think we're in for some good stuff today.
Yeah, massive flying lineup today here at Duxford. There are some excellent aircraft to see here flying this afternoon. Flying display is going to be starting around about after dinner time, with one of the aircraft flying being the Bristol Blenheim, which is behind me and Nev here, the only flying example in the world, an absolute amazing aircraft to see flying, and one I know a lot of you will probably know here in the UK as being one of those lesser known aircraft from the Second World War. But what do you think of the Blenheim, Nev?
Beautiful, isn't it? And beautifully restored as well. And we did hear that there's another one in the process of being restored also over at one of the hangars here. So, but no, as always, huge selection of aircraft. The weather's great, lots of people here, and looking forward to seeing some of our listeners as well later on.
Yeah, we've got someone coming in from the US, Nev, apparently.
We have, yep. Sam's flown in on his 757, I think. Well, it's not his one, but his company one, obviously. And I had heard that he'd been down to White Waltham to do some flying in a Tiger Moth as well. So it'd be nice to catch up with him later on and have a chat with him too.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing Sam. Now, behind, so you can't see, but sure you'll see it on the shots later, we've got an awesome array of aircraft here on the flight line. The Sally B is literally just over there where we went last year. We had a tour around Sally B, didn't we?
We did, yes. And yeah, it's an unbelievable aircraft. And actually, they were very hospitable as well. They let us go where we wanted to inside, and had a good chat with the folks outside of it as well, didn't we? So yeah, really good.
So the flight line is open now until midday here at Duxford for everyone to come and get up close to the aircraft and see what's going on here at Duxford. So a great opportunity for the members of the public to see a bit closer and see what goes on with the aircraft here. You can probably see the Dragon Rapide just going behind us there. We're doing the pleasure flights here, which is a really good experience. Now, if you've not tried it, the Dragon Rapide is definitely one, because it's a tail dragger, and to get to the back of the aircraft, which is where I sat, it's a kind of downhill. But then when you want to get off, it is an uphill struggle.
Is there a seat 1A and Pinot Grigio served as well?
There's definitely a seat 1A, just one pilot seat. But no, it's a great little experience to get. If you get a chance to come to Duxford and have a go at the Dragon Rapide, it is well worth the visit. But we've got loads to see and do here today. And also, who you can't see behind the camera, who's at the moment our sound guy, is our very good friend of the show, Graham Haley. So hello, Graham. Right. Let's go and have some more coffee.
Yep, excellent idea.
So very lucky to be joined by our listener Sam Dawson. Sam, welcome to the UK.
Thank you. Awesome.
Great to see you.
I brought the good weather with me.
You did bring the good weather with you, exactly. Did you bring the 7.5 with you?
No, not this time. Came on a 7.6.
But you are what we say, our resident 7.5 pilot, and just say personally that the 757 is my second favourite aircraft flying. That and obviously the TriStar is number one, yes. Albeit one of those flying still left. But
who has the TriStar?
That's Stargazer, over in the US.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, 7.5. What's I mean, you're here at Duxford obviously for the air display today, but a bit about the job that you do.
Well, I'm a 757 and 766 pilot for, we'll call it Penguin Airlines, and primarily fly Western Europe. So for me, living in the east coast of the U.S., it's an ideal job. I fly over, I go to places like Porto, Madrid, London, Edinburgh, really foreign countries like Edinburgh. So it's really lovely. You get to come over, spend about half a day somewhere, go to bed, then fly back. Really, I get paid to have fun. So awesome job.
Nice part of the country as well, up north,
yes.
Scotland.
Yes. And it's interesting talking to the controllers. Sometimes the three of us on the flight deck have to look at each other, scratch our heads and go, what did he just say?
So how was your flight over?
Beautiful. had a melatonin and a glass of red wine, fell asleep, and then the flight attendants woke me up and said, "You need to put your seat upright, it's time to land." So I slept almost
Just a quick one, you weren't in economy?
No, I was not in economy. So I did fly standby and fortunately got to sit in Polaris business class.
Polaris.
So that was quite nice. And London-based flight attendants, and our London-based flight attendants are fantastic, as you would imagine.
So, your first time, I think we were talking earlier, your first time here at Duxford.
Yes.
First impressions?
Blown away. And I've been to some aviation museums before. I've been to the Aerospace Museum, I've been to the Annex, and this place is just incredible. And I've only scratched the surface. We were talking beforehand that there's so much more to see. And to walk the flight line and see all these aircraft and know that most of them are flying is just incredible. I thought I would be here half a day. I think they'll probably have to kick me out.
It's open till late, don't panic. But obviously here at Duxford, there's a lot of history here, as you probably know. It was originally a base during the Second World War. But you've got some aircraft here, which I think in the US, obviously the Sally B, the B-17 is outside. But are there any aircraft here you've seen since you've got here this morning which you've recognised and think, I know that one?
Oh, the Catalina, the Spitfire. Well, the Spitfire, how many Spitfires are out there?
I think we've got 6 flying today.
6, okay. It looked like more than that.
There's probably...
So those just struck me right away, especially the Catalina. You don't see very many of those flying, I think. Yeah, maybe half a dozen are still flying. So really the Catalina, even more than B-17 to me, is just to see that flying. Oh, and what's the biplane transport that was just flying around out there?
Oh, the Dragon Rapide.
Yes, to see that. Oh, that's just a beautiful airplane. And just to see that flying is just amazing.
You can go in and have a flight as well today, if you wanted to.
They'll let me fly it?
Not fly it. No, not fly. You can sit as a passenger.
Yes.
It is a good experience, trust me, it is good. So we are here in part of one of the restorations hangars here at Duxford. And I suppose for you get a chance to see aircraft looking slightly less airworthy than what you're used to.
Yes, but I also love to see that, to see the taken apart where you can see the engines and the workings of them and see how far things have come, but also how far things have stayed the same. You know, some of the designs are still the same. But to see them apart like this is really just fantastic as well. That they let you in the hangars here where you can see some of these airplanes. You know, like you can see over there an Italian airplane I'll get to see, Corsair, Kitty Hawk. Just amazing.
Yeah, it's a fantastic museum here. Definitely
Yes.
well worth it. And as I said earlier, it does take at least a day. You need a good day here to see what's going on.
I think so.
You did get in contact with us here. I know you spoke to Nev to find something to fly.
Yes.
And yesterday you got a chance to do something, I think, a certain member of our team, not mentioning any names, Armando, who would have been very jealous.
Yes. I got to go to White Waltham. Is that how you say? Am I saying that right?
It, yeah.
Okay, say that 10 times fast. And I connected with a pilot there, Paul Revel. He was a Buccaneer pilot in the RAF and a Boeing pilot for British Airways. And we got to fly the Tiger Moth. And since I have a bit of tailwheel time, he let me actually fly it. I got to do some loops in it, a landing. I did quickly learn, just out of instinct, I tried to do a competition loop with a negative G pushover, and I learned very quickly that Tiger Moth does not appreciate negative Gs. But quickly learned to just keep the positive Gs in a loop, which is a little different for me. So it was a fantastic experience. Although, kind of thought about it afterwards, maybe doing loops in a 90-year-old airplane is probably 90? Is my math correct? It's probably about a 90-year-old airplane. But still, it was a fantastic experience. And again, a beautiful day in England to be doing that and flying over the green countryside just outside the Heathrow airspace. As a matter of fact, White Waltham lies just underneath, I think, on the very edge of the airspace. And because it's been there a little bit longer than Heathrow, they get to still use that part of the airspace. So great experience. Anybody coming over who's interested in something like that, they have several aircraft there that you can do that in. Including, if I hit the lottery, the Hawker Hurricane. Hawker?
That's it. That's correct. You're right.
But I think my spouse she'd probably hit the roof if she saw a charge for several £1,000s hitting it.
Yeah, I think Nev will understand I have a similar problem at home. Not so much with getting and flying aircraft, but with pieces of aircraft that are in my house at the moment.
Yes.
But we're working on that.
Yes.
You obviously fly commercially, the 7.5 and the 7.6, but you've flown a Tiger Moth yesterday. Yes. Have you got other experience with other, obviously you trained in light aircraft, smaller aircraft?
Yes, I trained in light aircraft. I actually used to own a Super Decathlon and taught aerobatics in that. I still do general aviation flying. My wife is based at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and I mentor cadets there who are on the flying team. And so I'll go up in Piper Warrior with them and teach them, give them annual checkouts, and again mentor them, prepare them for being active duty pilots, which is just very rewarding. I get to continue flying general aviation, do hands-on flying, which I enjoy, and then mentor young cadets who will be officers in just a year or two. So yes, I still do general aviation flying.
150s, 172s, or PA-28s?
PA-28s. PA-28s. Actually, right now they have a PA-28 and a 172, which is a little bit of a hassle because I have to check them out in both. And they're trying to get where they just have a common type, the PA-28. So I just check them out on one aircraft and be done with it. So.
Now, before we wrap up, just briefly, before the 7.5 you fly, obviously it's one of those aircraft, commercial airliners, obviously one of my favourites, but it's slowly being phased out a lot by the airlines. Yes. I'm guessing probably out of the two that you fly, the 7.6 and the 7.5, I'm going to say the 7.5 is your favourite?
Yes.
How long do you think or the airline that you fly for will be sort of have those in service, do you think?
They last told us at least 2030, and they even said that they are planning right now to upgrade the panels. Right now we still have round gauges, and so they are looking, and we have old TV tubes for some of the screens. And you can imagine if those TV tubes break, those things are about that long and weigh, I don't know how many pounds. If those things break, it's kind of like an old TV. You just don't repair those anymore, and so parts are getting very difficult. So they're looking at pulling those out and putting flat panel TVs in their place, which would be a major upgrade. So if they do that, they're probably going to be around at least through 2030. I know there have been issues with the long-range Airbus 321 XLR, is that correct?
That's it.
Coming online, and until those can come online and the pilots can get checked out, they really need something like the Boeing 757 for these shorter transatlantic flights like Shannon, Dublin, Edinburgh. We'll even go as far as Stockholm. That's the longest one we'll do, is all the way to Stockholm. It's a great aircraft. The only downside to that is the crew rest seat we were talking about. 7.6, we take the Neville Bounds seat. We get seat 1A, so he'd be out of luck on our 7.6s. But we do get that beautiful 1A seat on the 7.6. That's the only downside to 7.5 is this regular business class seat, so we have to climb over somebody every time we change out. But otherwise, I love that aircraft. It's my second favorite.
Is it a Dash 200 or 300, you guys?
Primarily a 200. We have 300s, but those primarily fly Hawaii and the interior of the U.S. So I only see a 300 every other year or so, not very often.
Yeah, because our low-cost airline Jet2 here in the UK recently phased out the last of their 757s. Okay. But I think a lot of those have gone to be converted into freighters.
Yes.
Which is good.
Yes.
I think a few of them went to be scrapped in Cardiff.
Yes.
On the west coast.
Like I said, one of the big problems is the TV tubes. They actually have to go to one of the scrap heaps and pull a TV tube out of a scrapped aircraft if one of them needs to be replaced. That's the only place you really can get them. And normally when those are scrapped, I think the airlines will normally jump in and try and buy those TV tubes for their parts bins.
So Sam, one last question. Okay. Obviously, you've not had a chance to look around the whole museum yet, but I'm sure you will do today. If you could get a chance to just jump in anything now, I mean, there are a lot to choose from here, let's be honest. There's a lot of aircraft here. What would you love to go outside now and jump into and take a flight in the circuit round Duxford here?
Nev asked me that the last time we met in London. I think the answer is still the same. I think I said the P-47. It's kind of the Cadillac escort fighter. It was really kind of, I think, really almost an underrated fighter. It was probably one of the best fighters of World War II. especially escort fighter that had to go long range. And when you think about how long those pilots had to sit in an aircraft, especially flying around the Pacific, I had to think about that. These guys would sit in these aircraft for 12-hour missions and then have to do the same thing the next day. So to have something as roomy and comfortable as a P-47 and as rugged, to fly something like that would be fantastic. And there are not very many of them left. Imagine there's probably one here, I would think. They have everything else, but very few of them left because they, unlike the P-51s, they were almost all scrapped after World War II. So to do the P-47, I think, would be my first choice.
Well, Sam, thanks for making the journey over to the UK. Really appreciate it, and please enjoy the museum here at Dugsford, because it is definitely worth you being here to look at.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Thanks for
Sam.
having me. Appreciate it, promise.
I mean, wow.
So good to talk to Sam. Finally meet him.
Yeah.
Obviously, we get emails in from Sam and stuff, and it was nice to finally meet the man behind the email, and obviously we did have quite an extensive chat off camera with Sam about some of the stuff that he's done and where he's been, and amazing career he's had, really amazing career, and he's still flying.
Super guy as well. Thanks very much, Sam. Thanks for
Sam.
taking part. It was really good, really interesting to hear.
Graham Haley actually says in the chat room, for those of you, or especially if Sam's listening, Graham says the P-47 is a solid choice.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Right, time to wrap up soon, but first, quickly, it is time for Caption This Just for Fun. This week's picture posted on our social medias, and your chance to give a caption to that picture and amuse us here at P2UK. So, the picture this week is involving a bit of grey stuff, a bit of military, but this particular aircraft has got a slight
protuberance.
Large.
A bit of a swelling.
Growth.
Yeah. Going to kick off with Kevin, who says, that's one hell of a bee sting. Like that one. Nick, do you want the next one?
Yeah, and this one's from Andre, and he says, Doc, it started out as a small pimple.
Matt, do you want the next one?
Yes, just try to get it. It's Jean-Luc Picard. Wonder if it's that one.
I know. I think that every time I see this.
Look, no one else is dressed. I told you it wasn't fancy dress.
John Falk says, guys, let's colour our nose red. Then we'll be ready for Christmas early.
Indeed.
We've got one here from some guy called Armando.
Never heard of him.
He says, sniffing out bad guys since 1958.
Wow, and here's a name I've not seen since, oh my goodness, the old kitchen disco days. Leanne Hollingsworth has been in touch. She says, does my nose look big in this? I think that's my favourite.
Like that. Carl Saltmarsh says, and this is why you need to always carry your EpiPens.
Sound advice, as always, that.
We got one here from Stephen Howland, and he says, and I thought the A10 Thunderbolt was Warthog was ugly. Yeah, he's got a point there.
Yeah, Dirk's been in touch. Delta Air Force, Delta Airlines now hardening wide bodies for future mocking of CRJs.
Oh, harken last week's story, yes. Yeah. Neil Draper, pilot has a massive fart after a very hot chili.
Her tone has been set very badly.
John Ellis says, that bloody Asian Hornet, where's that antihistamine?
Quite. Andy's been in touch. Andy Walker saying, a massive job for Dr. Pimple Popper, I think. Oh dear. Do you know, I think I accidentally stumbled across one of those videos.
Don't.
You can't unsee them.
No, I know.
Michael Biff Button says he was a lovely lad, but blessed with a face that a mother would struggle to love.
What I say is usually a face for radio, but we'll gloss over that.
So we've got one here from Sandra Fogarty. That's what happens when you stick your nose in a wasp's nest.
True, indeed.
Yes, true.
Jean-Luc Picard again. USAF Pinocchio aircraft tells everyone he's a tank.
I like that one. Michael Upton says the guys in the aerodynamics department are doing fine and should be back on solid food in another couple of weeks.
Quite absolutely, indeed. Genuinely, though, it's a serious question. Like, how on earth does that thing fly?
Yeah, it looks kind of like it would just tip over.
I know.
So we've got one here from...
It would be a bit nose heavy.
Yeah, okay.
I'm very quiet. Isn't it? It's like, I can hear the crickets. Yeah.
Got one here from Mike Williams. As if Boeing didn't have enough problems. Turns out their planes are also allergic to bee stings.
Not a bee stings with this.
Yeah, there are, absolutely. Dirk is offering the suggestion that if Shrek was a plane...
That's good. I like that one.
What does it turn into, like a beautiful Concorde, like you know?
Oh, blimey, I don't know about that.
Or something like that. No,
it would need serious filing down.
Okay.
Local listener Mazus says it's a royal flight. I said crown, not clown.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Tell you what, that would be good if you did paint that red. That would work out really well, actually.
Rudolph, good old Rudolph.
Good old Rudolph.
There we go. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, thanks for that, everyone. Let's have a look in the chat room, see if there's anyone with a comment. Here we go. We're going to go far off with this one from Bill. There we go.
Bill's saying, with a bit of a clean-up, it might make a good airliner.
Richard Adams has got a great one here.
The only aircraft that can make a beluga look sexy. True that.
Richard E. Flag.
Yeah,
I think he.
Oh, hello. Big nose, big undercarriage.
Yes,
one for the slightly less faint-of-hearted listener.
I don't know if there's any correlation between the two there.
Don't know what
Thanks to everyone who contributed this week to our caption this picture. Very good indeed. Quick plea from you, Nick, to the listeners.
Yes, my usual plea for feedback. So keep the emails coming in. Send us your pictures, send us your videos, record us a story, anything you like. If you send it in, we promise we'll play it out. Probably.
You build it, we will come.
Indeed, yes. So we want to hear from you, and we want you to take part. So send us your feedback, please.
Right, social media links. Where can you find out more about the show and us online? Well, you can go to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search social media for Plane Talking UK. Email the show. As Nick said, you can send us in your feedback to podcast@planetalkinguk.com. The website, allthews.planetalkinguk.com, and on there you'll find all the links to find out, as I said, more about us. Also, you can get yourself a T-shirt as well from there and a mug. And there's two different mugs. You can have the standard P2UK mug, or you can have the military grey one if you love your military aviation. And you can also find on there links to Patreon and PayPal as well if you want to become a supporter of the show. We really do appreciate that as well as much indeed. So that is it for this week's show. Thanks again to Armando for joining us this week. It was great to have him back on the show briefly for the first hour of the show. So thanks, Armando. Thanks, Nick, for all the hard work this week. Thank you to you. And also not forgetting Matt Smith as well for all his hard work over in the studio there, pushing all the correct buttons and faders.
I actually did today as well. It's very exciting.
He done well. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have Nev back next week. I think Andy's off next week again as well. But then he will be back in full effect after that week. So good look forward to having Andy back as well. So that's it. Thanks to all the chat room. Thanks to all the YouTube viewers tonight for joining in with the show and the chat room. Great to see you all in there. And from me here, Carlos in my home studio, from Matt in the P2UK Master Suite Studios, from Nick in his studio in a very nice part of the UK down south. Have a great rest of the week and a great weekend, and we'll see you all next Wednesday. Say goodbye, Nick.
Goodbye, everyone. I have a quick correction to make.
Oh, God, really?
Well, you said about the F-35 at Duxford.
Oh, right, it's F-22.
No, but I said, was that the one with the new livery? But I was, of course, thinking about the Typhoon, which has the new livery.
Oh, the Typhoon, yeah.
I take it the Typhoon wasn't there.
Was the Typhoon there? I can't even remember now.
You'd remember it. It was loud enough when we saw it at Cosford.
Yeah, we saw it. We saw it at Cosford, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was a really good display Saturday. They had some great stuff there, and it was literally constant all the time. Literally, as one aircraft was finishing the display, the next aircraft was started engines, lined up, ready to take off and get in the air. It
must have felt a bit like every time you went inside to look at something inside that you were sort of getting a bit of FOMO.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I can just hear another one. I just want to rush out and see it. Yeah, hopefully, maybe try and make that one next year. I think.
Yeah, we'll have to get you down for next year, definitely.
Yeah.
Might try and make a weekend or something of it.
Yeah.
Nick, so you don't have to travel back.
Yeah.
Quite so. Yeah.
Right,
I need to get away because I have got two very excitable young kittens downstairs who are waiting for their
cat dad,
for their kitten dad, cat dad to go down and see them.
Aww.
So I shall have a lap full of kittens very
rather like this.
Swiftly. Rather, yes. Look at them little.
Look at those little curly face.
I'll tell you what. The level.
And I get stick for my voices, honestly.
The level of commitment and love.
They are quite cute, to be fair.
That I have. I would never get up early for anything, but I am actually at the moment getting up an hour early every day to go and sit downstairs with those guys.
Love that. Dave and Nigel, best names ever.
Dave and Nigel.
Love that. Yeah. Nigel No Socks. There you go. That's how
Nigel No Socks. Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good way to remember it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Nigel No Socks.
All the ends. Yeah. And
but
Dave, and apparently Dave Smellybum, but that's slightly less easy.
He is. Do you know? I sat there last night enjoying TV before I went. Before I came up to go to sleep. I had him on my lap, and I sat there and I thought something smells a bit off here. And he had a little smile on his face, and he'd done a little kitten trump, and I just thought, my word, honestly, Dave, you are incredible.
Essentially, he's a cat version of you, Carlos. That's the problem.
Yes, well, that is true. That is true.
My 6-year-old daughter does that, so yeah, I know the feeling.
Oh, hello to Snowflake, who's in the chat room. Says cats rock. Good. Hello, Snowflake. We've just finished your show.
Marvellous. Perfect timing. Well done.
Thanks for joining us. I need to go off. I need to skip off. So thanks, everyone, again in the chat room for joining us this week. You are all amazing, and have a fantastic, safe and brilliant rest of the week and weekend. And look after yourselves. Matt, I think, you know what, this week, Matt, the last words from you.
Oh, you see, you can't do that because I have to change. Hang on. Well, no, because I have to, I set it all up ready to... anyway, yes, thank you very much to everyone for joining. It's been a great show. We're back next week, same time, same place, 7 o'clock. Hopefully the podcast itself, the audio version, will be released probably tomorrow now because I'm a bit tired and I need to go to bed. If you are a fan of the radio, by the way, big announcement coming a week today. Anyway, from all of us here at the team, we'll see you all next week, 7 o'clock. Bye-bye for now.